Hello and welcome to another episode of Fresh Thinking by Snowden Optiro. You join us again in the Bristol office in UK. My name's Julian and Aldridge. I'm the regional manager of the international region, and I'm joined here by Laurie Hassall, a senior geology consultant. Again, Laurie is a CPQP for tungsten, tin and lithium. He spent 12 years of his career working in exploration and operations. And this is going to be the second part in a commodity discussion series. Today we're going to be focusing on tin. So Laurie, welcome.
Thank you.
Let's kick off. I guess the first question is, what is tin and what are its applications?
Absolutely. Well, it's one of my favourite subjects, tin. So tin and tungsten very closely related in terms of deposits. Often tin and tungsten are found together. And for viewers who watch the tungsten video, will know that tungsten wasn't discovered until very late on, until the 18th century. Now, tin, on the other hand, is a material that has been used for thousands of years in terms of human history. Discovered in 3,500 BC at least.
Right, so the start of the Bronze Age.
Start of the Bronze Age,
of course,
yes.
Copper plus tin is bronze.
Exactly, yeah. The use of, a combination of tin and copper to form bronze, very useful metal, and used for 2,000 years during the Bronze Age and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Now, tin, the name, just a bit of history in terms of where the tin name comes from. So it's Germanic in origin, Zinn being the German word for tin. And like tungsten, it also has a chemical symbol that is different to its common name. So common name being tin, chemical symbol SN. So where does SN come into it? So SN is as a Latin for stannum. So stannum literally translates as substitutes, substitute for lead. So for tin and lead being very soft metals and also having very low melting points, that were often used interchangeably in the past.
Right. I was not aware of that. Okay, well, I mean, so leading on from that, what are the sort of the geological environments and deposit styles that you find tin in?
Okay, so as mentioned, tin and tungsten are interrelated. So, like tungsten, tin is found within granite plutons, granite within geological environments, continental collisional terrains. So tin is often zoned within those deposits within granites. So you often have a bit of metal zonation, with tungsten being perhaps the first metal in a deposit, very high temperature.
Right.
Followed then by tin, still high temperature, but there is some zonation, and then that's followed by base metals such as copper, zinc, and arsenic.
So as the pluton cools, you start to get different things coming out of solution.
Yes, and often tin deposits are located in the roof zones of granites,
right,
the intricacies of granite intrusions,
right,
and often manifest as sort of Greisens deposits, stockworks, sheeted veins, and also loaded vein style deposits as well.
Okay, so associated with the structural controls on the emplacement, as well as the sort of the geothermal and the fluid related deposition.
Yeah. And the other important aspect as well with tin is that again, as with tungsten, there is an affinity with a specific granite types and geochemistry of granites. So with tungsten, association is with muscovite-rich melts. Tin, the association is with biotite-rich melts, and also magmatic tourmaline as well. So, so in terms of exploration, if you're fingerprinting granites and you are working with a biotite-rich granite or a tourmaline-rich granite, then it's a sure sign that you may find a tin deposit associated with that granite.
Okay. So in what sort of parts of the world are tin deposits found?
Well, depends on the deposit type, but again, like tungsten, tin is produced predominantly in China. That is the biggest they are the biggest producer of tin, but that is followed closely by the likes of Indonesia, Myanmar, Malaysia, and often a lot of those deposits are placer type deposits.
Right.
So I just touched on primary deposits, but actually placer deposits have been historically and still are, one of the most important sources of tin.
So detrital tin.
Exactly, yeah. So secondary alluvial deposits.
Significant source of tin, of cassiterite?
Absolutely, yes, and that is the chief mineral for tin.
Right.
So cassiterite is a tin oxide.
Yeah.
The name cassiterite is derived from the Greek and Phoenician languages.
Right. So it's much more. I presume they're a lot easier to extract if the detrital tin.
Yes.
In terms of extraction, you haven't got the costs associated with
Absolutely.
hard rock mining.
Exactly that. Yeah, very low cost operations. Tin because of its density accumulates in alluvial placer deposits quite readily, and as you say, low OPEX involved in the extraction and processing.
Giant Hoover.
A giant Hoover, exactly.
Right. So, I mean, what are the specific metallurgical and mineralogical considerations with tin?
Yes, there are some, absolutely. We touched on the mineral, cassiterite. That is the chief mineral of tin, but it isn't the only mineral that hosts tin. Sulfide minerals can also host tin, so stannite is quite a common tin mineral. But when you are when you first discovered a tin deposit, it's very important to understand which mineral you are dealing with. Cassiterite, in terms of processing, will process very differently. It's an oxide mineral, it's very dense, and often gravity separation processes are the chief processing technique to recover tin. But with stannite, obviously it's a sulfide and therefore requires flotation to recover it. And often the tin content of stannite is much lower than cassiterite. And often if you have discovered a deposit with stannite, there are often other sulfides associated with that mineral. Copper, chalcopyrite, sphalerite, zinc.
Yes.
So recoveries, when you've got a complex sulfide-rich deposit, recoveries are more often not going to be lower than a clean cassiterite type deposit.
Now, I remember you mentioning in a previous podcast that tin's quite commonly associated with tungsten. Is it possible to recover both of those, or do you tend to have to favour one over the other?
Yeah. No, great question. Historically, it was very, very hard to separate tin and tungsten because they are very dense and they recover with gravity processes. However, now with the advent of magnetic separation and also flotation as well, it's much easier to separate tin from tungsten. And if you've got a deposit with both, you can recover both metals.
I remember you saying that tungsten has quite a strong magnetic action associated with it, and it can be extracted or at least concentrated using magnetics. I presume tin doesn't have.
Tin, no, is not magnetic at all.
Right.
So if you have a deposit and you are processing and trying to recover both metals, magnetic separation can remove the tungsten, and what you're left with at the end is a tin-rich concentrate.
Right.
The non-magnetic portion.
Fantastic. So I guess my next question is, how is tin actually mined?
Yes, depends on the deposit style. Vein-hosted deposits, very much underground, can be extracted with underground methods.
Yeah.
And likewise, sheeted vein stockworks, lead themselves to open pit methods.
Right.
But then on the flip side, we talked about secondary tin deposits as well, placer deposits, very different extraction method for secondary placer deposits.
Yes. So it's a horses for courses type of situation.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's no specific tin related mining method. It's just using either open pit, underground, or detrital methods. So is there anything specific we should consider when estimating tin or modelling tin distribution?
Yeah, I mean, one important aspect we haven't touched on is, again, it's more a metallurgical aspect, geometallurgical aspect, is grain size of tin. Now grain size can vary dramatically with tin deposits. We can be talking about micron scale right up to sort of centimetre scale, individual crystals of cassiterite, and obviously that has implications obviously for processing. So from a modelling point of view, getting a handle on one, the mineral species, but also the grain size is a very important aspect. I would say below 20 to 40 microns. If tin is found below that, then you're going to struggle to recover tin, and it's going to slime. So that's
simply in terms of liberation from standard grinding circuit.
Yes, that's right. And again, if you've got to float some of your mineral, whether that's tin as a sulfide or other sulfides in the deposit, then you've got to get that grind size for the flotation circuit correct. Otherwise, you don't want to do is slime the mineral.
Yeah, the mineral report to slimes. Oh, well, thank you, Laurie. Very, very insightful about tin. I very much enjoyed talking to you about that. So that draws this podcast to a close. Laurie Hassall, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Julian.
And thank you everyone for watching this next in the series of Fresh Thinking by Snowden Optiro. If you'd like to listen to more of our Fresh Thinking series, you can find them for free on our website, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your normal podcasts from. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. All right, thank you.